Welcome to this week's episode of Uncovered for Pole Dancers, a podcast created by pole dancers for pole dancers. I'm your host, Stephanie Quinn. Before we dive into this week's episode, I would love to give a special shout out to this week's sponsor, Pole Fitness Studios Instructor Certification Program, designed by the world's first ever pole dancing instructor, Bornia. You can find out more information about their instructor certification programs in the link in the show notes. Welcome to Uncovered. So today I'm joined by Kat. Welcome back to the podcast, Kat.
Thank you.
So Kat and I are just having a couple of chat episodes today. I'm actually really excited to just talk about pole. And the first episode we're going to talk about is questions instructors are always asked. So both Kat and I are instructors. So I've been teaching since 2015. When did you start pole, Kat? Instructing?
I feel like it's been 6, maybe coming up 7 years.
Okay. So we've been around for a while. A while. And there's always these questions you get asked by students. Some of them are good questions, because they want to learn and they want to know. And others of them are just funny.
Some are funny. Some are hard because there's not a clear-cut answer.
There's a lot of it depends.
Depends.
Is that, that's like spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I do want to throw out a little disclaimer here. We are answering these questions purely based on our own experiences as both students and instructors. And for some of these questions, if you're really interested, we would recommend going and speaking to, potentially a physio or an exercise physiologist, or in some cases, a therapist, whatever it is that you need throughout this. But I think another important thing to start off with is your instructors do have a scope of operation. So they're only allowed to practice within this scope. And that is generally speaking, they can't diagnose you. They can't give you rehab exercises, and they can't take you through a therapy session, generally speaking. Even if they're qualified, they can't, because when they're in the studio as an instructor, and their scope of practice as an instructor is obviously to take you through a group workout session, generally speaking, or a one-on-one.
Yeah. They might be able to talk about things they've noticed or like people's experiences or their own experience, but not actually go, well, I know what's wrong with you.
Yeah, you need to go do
that
X,
line,
Y, Z. We just had Simone in the studio. Well, she wasn't in the studio, but online for professional development recently. And we did hypermobility. And one of the questions, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
I forgot to touch base with you since then. I just said, what is it? And what is our role as an instructor if we notice somebody's hypermobile and it's impacting them? And it's essentially just have you heard about this? Have you thought about it? Here's some resources. I can make some recommendations for professionals if you need. So that gives you an idea of the scope of an instructor. But anyway, shall we jump into the first question?
Let's go.
First question. How many times a week should I be training or going to pole class? Get this one a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I think I want to start with whatever your decision is, you need rest and recovery. Because this is very much it depends.
Yeah, definitely.
It depends on, Kat brought up a really good point.
Yep. What are your goals?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you actually want to get out of pole? Because for some people, training once a week, having that social time or that little bit of me time that's all you need. If your end goal is to compete or to become a really high level pole dancer, once a week is probably not going to cut it.
But also 15 hours a week is not good either.
Yeah. What can your body tolerate depending on the rest of your lifestyle, depending on your own body, any things that you've already got going on for it?
Yeah.
Family life, work schedule.
Cycle sometimes comes into play. I'm the week before my period, I don't want to do anything. And then 1 or 2 days after my period, I can take on the world. So I'm about to transition into that mode. Yeah. I'm bring it on. I'm excited. But also what progression rate would you be satisfied with? I had somebody recently, they're looking at opening their own studio, and we were chatting and she was talking about her memberships. And because we don't have a 1 class a week option, we do if you buy a casual, but you can't just come do your beginner 1 class, let's say, and that's it. Well, you could, but you would have to buy 2 class passes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our minimum membership. And she's like, do you find this deters people? And yes, it definitely does deter potential new students. However, what I've generally found is people who are only doing that 1 class a week will typically fall off at some point in time because they get a bit stuck, especially in those intermediate levels. So they can't progress. And in saying that, I don't know what they're doing outside the studio, because that's another thing you have to take into consideration. They could be training 5 times a week outside the studio, so they're maintaining muscle.
And pole is your add-on, not the other way around, where some people might do 3 classes of pole a week and then they might do 1 gym session or 1 dance class elsewhere, or
and you can complement your training with dance classes, gym classes, gym
whatever
sessions.
you want.
Whatever you want.
Yep.
It really comes back to how fast do you want to progress and what do you want that to look like? If you're protecting yourself for an injury, how are you recovering well? And what
do you want to add stress to your life, or are you trying to reduce stress? Like, you have to think about, if you're trying to get for me, if I tried to get to class 3 times a week, and that's 3 times I need to make sure my partner's home from work and I've got, little one looked after, like, I feel like that would be adding more stress to my life.
Yeah.
So it's like I've had to balance how many times to get to pole in with everything else. So
and I know that my ability to pole has definitely changed as things have occurred with my body. And when I used to be able to probably do 3 times a week and multiple classes in that 3 times a week, now it's like 1 session a week is probably all my body can take on. So it's going to move and change as you progress, and depends what's going on in your pole journey. Cool. All right. Next one. We wrote a lot of dot points for this.
We did, yeah.
I feel stuck in my pole progress. What can I do differently? I think we've all been there, right?
Yeah. A few times.
Yeah, I find it's...
The answer is not enter a competition.
Oh, have you done that?
Maybe. Actually, no.
I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did do that.
Yeah. I feel like...
And then I brought a pole dancing studio when I thought I was going to quit pole dancing.
So I feel like, okay, sometimes especially if you are, and you've hit that advanced polling, and you're kind of like, am I pushing myself hard enough to get to that elite kind of level? Do I want to become an elite pole dancer? Do I want to work hard enough? Will my body allow me? All that stuff. Sometimes there's a motivation point. So getting stuck could be down to motivation. And I think that's where I entered a pole competition, was in the hope that that would be the motivating factor for my training.
Yeah. What pole competition was this? Which one was it?
I feel like it was QPC.
The year we were all in?
Yeah.
Oh, that was full on.
Yeah. And it was like a month after, I think it was my first big stage comp.
But it was probably a month or 2 after our in-studio comp?
Yeah, I think so. And it all just got really close together. And then I was really late with picking my music. And then somebody else had a variation of it. And so I was that person. You know how the rules say you can only have one person, so get your music in early? Yeah, I learned this the hard way.
Oh, trying to tell that to students. Yeah.
And then I had it was 3 weeks out. And I had to
change your whole routine.
Yeah, I changed my whole concept, and I went, screw this, I'm just going to be a Disney princess. And that is how had been to see the movie Beauty and the Beast, and that's how I became Belle.
And that's how Belle then became Dirty Belle for Kiss It Dirty, routine, which is like our...
That was actually really fun.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
But coming back to if you're stuck.
Try something different.
Yeah. If you're always a tricks person, could you go do a choreo class? Also, coming back to our question before, how many times a week should I be training or going to pole class? I think this is a valid point to add to that, as well as what type of classes are you doing? Are you just doing strength classes or strength tricks? choreo.
Do you need to vary that?
Yeah. Can you switch that up so you're not just training really hard? I find with pole too, we seem to train, like you go to the gym for an hour, you do your thing and you leave. But I find with pole, people
do
multiple
2 or 3
hours
classes.
are generally a thing. Anyway, it's a little side note. But coming back to, if you're stuck, like try something different.
Mm-hmm.
I said when try a different instructor.
Yeah.
Or a different studio.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I said when I came back postpartum, it was going to be the year of choreo for me because I knew straight away that I was going to feel frustrated at not being able to just pull out my old moves when climbing was really hard.
Yep.
And it didn't actually take me too long to get some of my advanced moves back, but my intermediate moves in the middle and skin grip pain was just intolerable. So just moving and dancing was a nice way to get me out of feeling stuck because I could progress in my dance without worrying about the tricks. And that just came later.
Yeah, I found it wasn't until I got an injury where the stuck feeling came through. And that's when I did also enter a competition. I was actually
coming back from an
injury. I was actually ready. I stopped training. I think once I became an instructor, I found it really hard in classes to actually be in classes and learning a lot about myself now. I much prefer a one-on-one approach than be in a class to learn approach. But yeah, I struggled with that. So I was still teaching, but I was like, what am I actually doing? Am I just holding on to this? And we've done podcast episodes on this before, onto this identity. And I'm like, I'm going to do Kiss It Dirty. And I've got this concept. If I don't love it, I'm done. And then, throughout that process, the studio came up for sale. Long story short, I'm still here.
Yeah, you
obviously.
So switching your focus, trying something new.
Is it just your mindset? Like, are you being really hard on yourself? Are you saying you can't progress? Are you scared because now you're an intermediate and it's a lot of upside down and you don't actually feel comfortable being upside down on the pole? Or advanced is a really overwhelming level to be in because there's just so much new stuff being created. And generally speaking, as an advanced poler, you have those foundations. So you can see something on Instagram.
I was just thinking.
Yeah. You can see something on Instagram and generally speaking, you can get into it, but there is a lot. And sometimes at that level, you get to that point and you and your pole buddies might be going in different directions. So refocus it. Like, who are you training with? Could you switch up your training crew? Like, could you train with somebody else?
Yep. And I think sometimes we get really, no matter what level, people can be really self-critical.
Oh, yeah.
So you might think you're not making any progress at all.
But you actually are.
But you are. So noticing those little steps along the way can be really hard. And that's where getting your coach and actually having a chat to them. So talking to one of your instructors or a training buddy that you honestly like trust what they say. Don't go to someone who's just going to go, no, you're doing amazing. If that's not what you're looking for.
Yeah.
If you are looking for that, find the person who can give that to you. But if you're not and you want an honest assessment of how you're going so you can trust it, ask someone to watch you train, have a chat to them, get them to watch you do a trick or two and go, all right, this is my video from a month ago. This is the trick I'm doing now. What can you see?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and he's saying that video.
Oh, yes, video.
Take videos.
Yes, track your journey. Like there are tracking apps for everything you do in the gym, right? So why not track your progress? Does your trick, are your toes actually now pointed in your climb, like both of them, because generally the back foot is flexed. How are you actually feeling in your invert? Are
you looking lighter in your moves? So your strength has improved and you don't necessarily feel it, but the audience watching you would see that difference if they compared them side by side.
And like, is your micro bend now gone out of your knees when you do your aerial invert with both legs straight?
Have you stopped, dumping or hanging in joints, whereas you might not have realized that. I know 10 years ago, we went when I first started training, we weren't using video all that much because
I don't think they weren't great.
They were my first Instagram post.
iPhones were around then, yeah?
Yeah, I think I had some kind of Android something. I didn't really take videos or photos of anything. That's kind of when I started. And I have very few recordings of anything that I did early on. And now I wish I had them.
Oh, I tell my trial girls if they feel comfortable to take photos.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you either one day you're going to want to look back in this if you become a pole dancer today and you're going to want to see how far you've come, or one day you'll look back and be like, oh, that time I did that one pole class.
Yeah. Tell your grandkids about it.
Yeah. Like, yay, fun. But yeah, like what else are you doing? Is there something that might be impacting you that is happening outside? What's going on in your life? Do you have a lot of stress going on? The other thing that can really impact you or get you stuck is your mobility. Are you now at a point where your mobility is actually, or lack of, hindering you? Or sometimes your hypermobility also hindering you, which is, your range, is it hindering you and what you're doing?
And I feel like girls in flexi class would probably bring this up a bit too, around I'm feeling stuck in my splits or I'm feeling stuck in my back bends. Like sometimes not just your instructor, but you might actually need a medical professional or a physiotherapist, somebody to assess your body and your movement and go, yeah, you've actually got some limitations here, but this is what you can do about it.
Yep.
If you really want to progress in that area, that's something you need to consider.
Yeah. And like I also, how dedicated are you to, I know it might be a harsh question, but how dedicated are you actually to your pole journey and progressing? And if you're not that dedicated, that's okay. You just need to determine that.
Yeah, you need to switch your focus up so that you're not feeling as stuck in what you're doing. Can you take a non-graded pathway in your studio? So we've got a vertical curriculum where, you know, you're basically being assessed to step up.
Yeah.
But we also have options for people who
don't want to do that.
Yeah. So do you need to switch it up and go into that, or do you need to not do a course class for a little bit and remove some of that pressure and experiment with movements and things outside? Because you might find,
so many things.
Yep.
Yeah. There's like half the podcast already there and we still have 20 questions to go. No.
That's right. Let's go.
Let's go. We can do this. What exercises should I be doing outside of pole class or the studio to help me get my invert or stronger for pole? Kat, what do you do outside the studio?
This is where I said Steph is qualified to answer this question. At the moment, other than the random handstand in my backyard or lifting a 15-kilo small child, I don't really do anything outside of pole at the moment.
Have you ever?
Training. Yep. For a while there, I did do a lot of strength work in the gym. And to be fair, that was probably when I was at my most advanced as well.
Yeah.
So it definitely doing the strength training, cross training at the gym.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Definitely improved, especially my overhead push for handsprings, Aishas. I was working towards an INX, even working on an aerial handspring at one point.
Yeah, wow.
But that was all gym.
Yeah.
Strengthening those shoulders and,
targeted. One of the things I will say here is go and look at the pole physio blogs, especially about particular tricks. When she does her anatomy series, they have so many exercises into those that are specific to that particular trick. But the way we think about it in the studio, and if this was one of my students who I was in a level class with and they came up to me and they asked me this question, is in each of our levels, we have what we call strength movements. And we do them in every class and they progress as you go up. And we have a movement for a push. We have a movement for a overhead push, core movement, vertical and horizontal pull. So they're like the ones that we would say, here's what we're working on in class. Do this at home a couple of times a week. You probably only need to do it twice a week, maybe, depending on your body, to help you feel a little bit stronger. However, there's also other things like that doesn't take into account anything legs. So you've got your typical movements for your legs, but then you've got adductor squeeze, like being comfortable in external rotation.
Glute strength.
There's quite a few elements. So look, to answer that one, I would say look at something like the Pole Physio. She's got so many blogs and free exercises for them. But think about the elements and what you want to strengthen in. Are you in advance and you're starting to do your Aisha and you're struggling in that hand, that top hand, bottom hand, technically, the one that's over your head? Does that mean you have to work on your overhead push? Do you need to do that? Are you struggling to push away from the pole? Do you need to work on your what would this be like? I don't know what level this is. I'm like a push up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. Are you failing in your glutes? Like, what is the area? So get a little bit self-aware and feel what you're struggling with and add that to it.
Yep.
Next question. When do the bruises stop?
Maybe never.
Maybe never. Mine's have never. They've eased, but they've never stopped.
Mine have definitely reduced from when I first started. However, if I'm learning something new, and I'm hitting a different part of my body or I'm revisiting something, I know I'm going to get a bruise today from doing funky grip.
Yeah.
Because it is something that I have not
bicep
touched.
grip, and it's like right up in there in that soft spot. I get lots of like bruises, or they look like hickeys on my crop top line, like my sports bra.
Yep.
That's definitely one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I generally say to beginners when they ask that question, I'm like, they'll move.
Depending
what you'll get used to one and then it'll end up somewhere else. But there's obviously a population of the pole world who will continue to just have bruises no matter what they do. It's just their skin, it's the way their body is. So yeah.
I think it's important to consider, like, is your technique correct? Like if you're finding you're getting bruises that are like intolerable or you're just getting them in the same spot every time, it might be worth getting somebody to check your technique.
Are you passionate about dance? Do you want to teach pole dancing or open up your own studio? My name is Fania Mundy and I began teaching pole dancing in 1994. And my focus is helping people like you fulfill their pole dancing dreams. We all have a journey, and perhaps your path is in enrolling in my pole dance instructor certification. Visit my website for more info at polefitnessstudio.com.
Because you could be loading into a particular area more than you need to. You might not be pulling through your arms enough, and so you're getting a bruise somewhere. But also then what can you do to help the bruising?
Did you do the whole arnica cream thing?
I tried, but I had too many bruises and I just gave up.
I know Pole Physics have a lotion with arnica cream in it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But no, I tried that for a period of time and then I just learned to embrace them.
Yeah. The worst one I ever got was when I first learnt to do an Allegra.
Oh, yes.
And we had a guest instructor, Phoebe came and we did one, and I just got this instant blue bruise on the inside of my thigh the minute I grabbed around my leg and stretched out into it. And it was one of those ones that made you want to vomit. The minute. I don't know if you've ever experienced
I've never had that experience.
And I got down from the pole and she took one look at me and went, yeah, you're going to want to ice that. And instantly I sat with an ice pack between my thighs for probably 10 more minutes. And then I didn't touch that trick again for years, I don't think, because it just caught me the wrong way.
When I caught up with Simone recently, I was telling her about us recording this podcast actually. And I was talking about one, which we'll get to later. And when I started I put out Allegra in my first ever pole expressions routine. And that part of my leg actually went numb. Apparently that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. That's a nerve thing.
I know.
Right?
And like, I've got feeling sensation back there, but from training it a lot, I just obviously damaged the nerves. Yeah. So
I damaged it too, but it just went blue.
Yeah. But I
had a pole pinch mark almost on the inside of my thigh.
This actually goes really well into the when will it stop hurting? And that was what I was talking to Simone about. She said it's in her blog, and she said it will desensitize your central nervous system will start to get used to what you're doing.
Yeah.
In no other, well, there probably are other sports, but I was teaching a trial last night and the girl's like, oh, it really hurts. I'm like, you're putting your body onto a metal pole. It's not too many other times in your life do you actively push yourself into something like that. Maybe trigger pointing and stuff.
Well, I have a martial arts background.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you said not many other sports, I was like, no,
martial
probably.
arts.
I think any sport where there's some kind of full contact.
Yeah. I
which
guess
I
rugby,
think
like,
tackling.
Yeah.
So I just think about the number of times that I would have gotten kicked or we had like shin to shin contact or, you know, top of the foot to elbow contact or something in Taekwondo. And your body did physically stop reacting. Like you knew it had happened, but you didn't get like those alarm bells ringing in your head going, oh my God, I can't continue.
Yeah. And I guess like you think
Pole's
about
similar.
Yeah. I think too, when you think about being tackled in league or union, you sort of learn how to, one, take the tackle, and two, like,
I'm
to
assuming.
keep going. I was such a tomboy. I used to play football on the field. Yeah, definitely. And
Kick
then,
me in the head, fine, but don't tackle me to the ground.
yeah. And then often like we would, like be tackled into the pool growing up. Anyway, I was very much a tomboy.
Rough and tumble. Yeah.
Rough and
So
tumble.
I think, your nervous system becomes accustomed to it on the pole.
Probably like getting used to being on a spinner. That's another good question, actually.
The
Like,
dizziness.
yeah, like building some kind of tolerance to that.
Yeah, I'm still building mine back up again, as I am with the skin grip pain as well. So coming back postpartum, only really training teaching once a week, maybe getting in a second time. So I'm really only maintaining. I'm not improving. So a lot of my grip points, I am absolutely there with all of my students when they're like, ow, this hurts. That's me as well. But I do find that little bit of adrenaline that kicks in as an instructor or a competitor on stage. I don't feel as much.
Yes.
When I train, I feel every little bit.
Yeah, I'm a really bad student. In
This comes into one of the other questions.
This does come into one of the other questions. So we'll hold off for that. What happens if I can't lift myself? Why do I feel so heavy?
I feel like every trial class,
There's always one.
and it said more of a statement than a question. And it's I couldn't lift my body.
Yeah, I can't get my feet
to.
off the ground.
It's okay.
Yeah.
That's where we typically start, unless you have a full strength background or maybe a gymnastics background. Most people can't lift themselves. And that's normal.
And like, we had Rosadiva on. It'll probably be by the time I release this episode, it'll be the last week's episode. And she was actually talking about inverts and getting your butt over your head. Like it's a hard movement. And I think that's where a lot of people start to feel this, is being able to engage through that core and that pelvic tilt to be able to get your butt, and using your horizontal pull and your vertical pull or whatever to get your butt over your head. All synchronized.
Yeah.
It's a hard movement. And I'm pretty sure in that episode we talked about, like, it obviously is depends where you are. It's a beginner. A lot of people are teaching this in their beginner movements, but it is a hard thing to learn, and you are going to feel heavy. And it's not always just going to be at the start of your pole journey. It could be after coming back from 3 weeks holidays. Your body feels heavy. It feels sluggish.
It could be after doing half of a class, or if you're doing a comp routine, after the first 45 seconds of your routine, or earlier, depending on what you're doing, you hit that point where you're like, whoa, the rest of this is really hard now.
Yeah.
You hit that point in class
And generally when students come to you with that, it is, okay, like what's going on? Do we have to build your strength in these areas? If you're not doing any other strengthening and you are a beginner, it's like, have you actually exercised in the last couple of years? Like this is just going to take some time. Your body just needs to catch up to what you're doing. And we've obviously got strengthening exercises you could use to help do that.
Yep. Or work around with some alternatives, like lowering down into the move instead of trying to get
especially
up
once
into
you get into intermediate.
Use your stronger muscles. Use most beginner moves. We're using our legs to get up we're not going upside down straight off the bat in our curriculum anyway. So we use those stronger, big muscles we have to push ourselves up rather than try and pull ourselves to start with.
Yeah. And even teaching, I taught a lady sit last night where you can, that for those of you who don't know what a lady sit is, you're beside the pole, you put your inside knee onto the pole and then you lift your outside leg over and it's like your legs are crossed and you sat on the pole. I think that's a half decent explanation.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you can do it so you sink down into it and then bring your leg up. But you can also do it by pulling through your arms and bringing your legs up. So there are different ways of getting into tricks. So, and you know what? There was some people who will never invert, and that's okay. It just depends what your pole journey is.
Well, and you can get inverted through multiple pathways.
Yes.
We think of an invert as the typical tucking, lifting up, straddling into it, but you can get into an upside down inverted position without actually going up and over.
Yes.
So for some people, that's...
And this all comes back to what's your purpose and why are you in pole and what are your goals? The next one, how long until I can do the splits? Why am I so inflexible? How long does it take?
It depends. Yeah. And that's really hard from a mindset point of view,
Some
right?
people will never get their splits. There are literally people who physically are incapable.
The other question is this, and pole dancers might find this really hard to struggle with this, but do you need to split? Like when I hurt my hamstring and went to the physio, just to, my closest regular one, not really aware of pole that much. He was like, why do you need to split? And I was like, because
your mobility's already
He's like, you can pretty much like touch the ground, like standing forward fold, like you've got past the regular mobility and flexibility.
Because I want to.
And I was like, because I could already do it and I'm a pole dancer and I need it.
Yeah.
Probably don't need it.
Well, it just depends what you want to do, right? Like I do remember being an advanced pole dancer in our top levels and not being able to split. I found that really hard to be in those classes. I could hold all the movements. I could just never split.
But is that because you were comparing yourself to everybody else that was splitting?
Yeah, probably. And because I wanted to do the trick the way the trick is prescribed.
Not a variation of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I can understand like why people, when you do give those variations because of a limitation to a student, I can understand why they go, oh, but I want to be doing that. I want to be with all the cool kids over there. Like I'm not doing the cool thing.
So do your conditioning, do your stretching, and consult
a specialist if you need it.
Yeah.
Like we've had Ellie from Flexercise on here, obviously Simone from the Pole Physio and her team. If you're struggling, like reach out to those guys, because so many things come into your splits. It's not just your muscles, it's your mobility in your joints, it's your nerves. And are you actually, let's be real, are you actually training enough to do
I was going to say, be prepared for any of these things that if you're actually asking yourself these questions, some self-reflection and even checking yourself. Like I know I went through a period where I was like, I just want to be able to iron X.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was working on it in class and one of my instructors was like, you do not pull through your top hand nearly enough to even, like, I don't even know how your hand's springing. And I was like, I just want to cry. And I had to do so much work just to correct that.
Yeah.
And like, I had to check myself and go, yeah, really? How much work do I actually do on this?
Yeah.
And that was really hard.
Yeah, I mean, and
it was hard to hear, but I needed it.
Whenever I train for splits, I'm just like, oh, well, I just get injured. So like, what's the point? Literally my mindset around splits. And like that has remained true until this day. I always seem to do something, but I'm now learning it's my body. So it's now how to cater to my body in those movements, but it's taken me a while to get there. However, yeah, it's really, do you actually want to put the training in that is required to do it?
And are you required to do it smart?
And not push yourself into it.
All of the advice to look after yourself while you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not everybody
that's
is
hard.
I'm pretty sure like there are people out there who you look at. I'm pretty sure Maddie Sparkles has always said it took her forever to get her splits. And she is like well, obviously Felix Kane is the other one comes to mind and Amy Hazel. But when I think about flexibility in pole, she's one of those people I think about. Training, guys, training.
Ask around too.
Yeah.
But just be careful of like ask around, but not with a comparison, but just to like gain some perspective.
Yeah, because there will be people who get them really quickly and there will be other people who have been training years. And that's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh no, I skipped ahead then.
When will I feel sexy? I think like how often in your life do you feel sexy now? Like I feel like a person who's asking this question doesn't often feel sexy.
I know for me as a beginning pole dancer, and I would like watch my instructor and I was like, she looked so sexy.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like how do you move like that?
Yeah.
How do you have the confidence to do that? Like I felt so uncoordinated. For martial arts, I was like stiff as a board, like doing a body roll took me, I reckon I was probably like 6 months or more in before I even figured out that movement. So for me, that was really like, that does not like give me 10 drinks and get me on the dance floor with like 100 people around me and
drop it like it's hot.
Yeah, sure I felt sexy, but standing in a class,
yeah,
definitely not.
One of the things I want to say is that I think everybody signs up for pole and wants to be sexy. And
I didn't.
Oh, actually,
but then it came when I saw people being sexy. I was like, ooh,
yeah,
I might want some of that.
I mean, when I started, like the pole gym was much more fitness based.
Yeah.
Like I remember their advertising had sneakers and stuff in it. But the school that I started at, or the studio I started at, you did think all your classes were in heels. So it was you
were kind of drawn to that.
Yeah. Well, there weren't too many options, but I think there was a part of me who was drawn to that as well as the really strong side. But I would say there's still very many days where I dance pole that I don't feel sexy.
Yep.
Even though I'm trying to, it just isn't coming out. But you know why though?
Yeah.
Because I'm really hard on myself.
Yeah. And I was going to say my answer to this too is, when do I feel sexy? When can you get out of your own way?
Yeah. When are you going to stop the negative self-talk to be like,
get out of your head?
Yeah. And what is your definition of sexy? I think that's really important because for some people, you know, going to the gym, pumping some weights and feeling like really strong makes them feel sexy. For other people, it is taking a sensual class and touching yourself and being in the heels, being in something that makes you feel sexy. So I think first of all, you need to identify what makes you feel sexy
and what sexy is to you.
Yes.
Like what those, for me, it's that confidence, like really watching people, like they look like they're really, really owning it. Yeah. And I'm like, or they look like they feel sexy. Whether they do or not is another thing. But my perception is that they feel that because they're just giving off this
good energy.
Yeah. So I think for me, like, that's when it kind of came for me is like, finding that style that resonated with me, which if anyone's ever been in my class, or seen my Kiss It Dirty, it's very cheesy or it's very overt, like in your face sexy. Yeah. There's nothing subtle about it.
Over the top.
Yeah. It's because I could like be a character almost. And in most cases, I've been a very unusual character, but I've like
inspect her gadgets.
I still love that routine.
Oh, that routine was great.
Yeah.
But coming back to that is like, try different styles and try different instructors because, you know, even just looking at our instructor team and the different styles of choreo they do, even though it's all sexy, some is hard style, some is fast, some is super slow and sensual, some is what you would call that typical pole dancing sexy. Like there's so many different styles and it's just
and so many styles of music.
Yes. Like some people can look sexy dancing to I don't know who's in it, like Eminem or, and then other people can look sexy dancing to Billy Joel. I don't know. I just,
now watch me. I was going to say, now watch me go through a Billy Joel playlist and find something to dance to. That sounds like, I like the unusual stuff. Yeah.
So like it's up to you what makes you feel sexy. But when will you feel it? When you're probably out of your head and you've made your own definition for sexy.
And you've stopped overthinking.
Sometimes doing a pole shoot is good for this.
Yeah.
I've assisted in a couple of the in-studio shoots we've done recently with our students, and just them looking at themselves with a good photographer, and they're just like, holy shit.
Is that what I look like?
I even had that moment recently. I remember screenshotting your photo and being like, I still can't believe this is me. Like,
actually, the last pole shoot I did as well.
Yeah.
I remember having those moments like,
do I look that good?
Do I look like that? That's cool.
Yeah. So
because we look at ourselves differently to how everybody else looks at us.
Yeah. And to be honest, we never look at ourselves like everybody else looks at us, because ours is always like a mirror, generally speaking. How do you make it look so easy? Instructor adrenaline mostly.
Definitely.
It's a thing.
It is a thing.
I know I can teach what we call a strength and tone class, which is an exercise class. And I can whip out, however many squats are in my prescribed program that day, and do it with ease. And then if I'm an instructor, while motivating you, while getting really excited and throwing all those cliches out. But then
feel the burn.
Yeah. You got this. Your mind gives up before your body. But then I will be a student and do the exact same thing. And damn, it sucks. I want to give up after like 10.
I think it's like you just hit this zone.
Yeah.
And that adrenaline kicks in, or whatever it is in your mindset. I kind of think when I'm instructing, it's almost like I'm performing. So I don't know, I just have this slightly different.
It's hyper performance, right?
I also don't feel the skin grip pain as much.
Yeah.
Similar thing. It's just that like little extra thing. It always looks easier when I'm demoing it to others.
Yeah.
Than when I'm doing it as a student.
Also, I know with beginners, I've been teaching a lot of beginners in like recent years, and I'll show them something. I'm like, why do you make it look so easy? I'm like, I've been pole dancing for 12 years or 10, 11 years. I hope I make it look easy. If I don't make this look easy, we got a problem. So you would want to hope that your instructor.
It's repetition, right?
Yeah, repetition and
good
practice,
technique,
consistency, good technique.
You've worked out like on most occasions, you've got like grip right. You've got your sweat to grip ratio happening. You know what clothing to wear.
Yep.
You've kind of learned all of those things where things are looking easier. And I often tell my trial girls when I have them too, like that's part of the art of pole.
Yes.
Is doing something until other people think that what you're doing is easy. Because then you get that little bit of self-satisfaction when somebody tries it and goes, whoa, that's not easy. And you're like, I know, but I do it all the time and it's great. Like, you get that like little like, yeah, cool. I've worked hard for this. Whether that is one of your close friends who finally comes in for a class and is like, whoa,
you're amazing. I want to be like you. Yeah. And the other thing in there is if you are wanting to make it look effortless, like your instructor, are you watching yourself record? Are you analyzing what you're doing? Are you looking at your technique? Are you getting feedback? These things are all going to help you train, and try not to. We've had this conversation before on the podcast. Try not to go 0 to 100 in like a year. Try not to get to your elite version in a year. Like take your time, work on the tricks and really perfect
the basics.
Because we want you in pole for a long time. And if you're going 1,000 miles an hour, well, history shows it's generally not a good thing, but it depends on your body. You might be bulletproof.
From a performance point of view as well, like I've watched a lot. I've been to a lot of pole competitions and things over my time, and I absolutely love watching people perform. If you don't do the basics well and for them to look easy, it almost doesn't matter. You might smack out a spatchcock or an inverted eagle or something, one of these really impressive moves. But if your climbs look heavy with flexed feet or you know, whatever it is that you're working on and it doesn't look easy, then it throws the balance of that performance out a little bit. So for me, like really continuing to work on the basics until they look easy is really important.
Yeah, I agree. This is a good one. What do you like as a student?
I am lazy. And I know it. I probably wasn't always a lazy student.
Yeah. I think I was
lazy might even not be the kindest term for myself right now, but
yeah, is that a little bit of negative self-talk over there?
Just a little bit whingy. I like it.
I am. It's hard because if I was to shoot it now, I'm different in the studio because I own it and I feel like I still have to set an example.
What about you know that you're like,
I'm
your
very
preferred
solo.
is in a private.
Yeah. If I'm
setting.
in a class, like I don't really care to talk to people.
So what do you like in a private lesson as a student?
Oh, whingy as hell.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it.
It hurts.
I know it's good for me, but I don't want to do it. It hurts.
But then do you get up and do it?
Yeah, I do love it. I love the feel of just working hard. And this is like I'm the type of person who loves a HIIT workout or like a Tabata or something high intensity. So I do love walking out of a class and feeling poop. So generally, yes, I would do it. I wouldn't say it depends on the instructor. If I know the instructor well enough, I can be whingy. But I don't think if I didn't know the instructor well, I'd just get in and do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
there's a different, if you've got a relationship with the instructor, there's a different, I know that when Renee took me for some privates post coming back from Bub, I was like,
poor Renee. For both of us. She's probably
pretty much at the same time. And I was like, F off.
I don't want to do
I'm
this.
not doing that. Or I'd try it and be like, no, that hurts. I'm not doing it. Find me something else to do.
Yeah. I'm also like a high achiever. So I will be in the corner trying to perfect and watching and analyzing and trying to get it over.
I was going to say,
what's
your learning style as a student?
Yeah. My learning style as a student is like, I want to perfect it. Progress, not perfection, people. And this is probably why I got stunted in my own pole journey because I sort of got to a level where my body wasn't ready to perfect the stuff I was being thrown at. Been thrown at me, sorry. So, but yeah, I am probably, I like the social element. Don't get me wrong. And it's great to have people in there who I know, but generally speaking, when I'm in class for me. So I'm,
whereas I'm probably
more of a loner, quiet achiever type student. Yeah.
Whereas I get more generally out of a group setting, and it's the energy of everybody else, which is why I think I like instructing so much as well.
Yeah.
Like I really vibe off that energy that's kind of being thrown around the room. And I also just love looking around and watching other people do it because I'm like picking what works and what doesn't work. And I'm constantly kind of going, okay, what's going to work for my body? And I'm learning from everybody else. And then I'm trying stuff and I'm getting down.
I must admit, I do like that. And I took a class recently. I was just there and that day something come up and I couldn't do my workout for the day. So I was at the studio. I'm like, I'm going to jump into this tricks class. And I found the instructor would do it. I'm like, cool. I'm going to try it once. And then I come down and then I watch everybody else. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go up again. Getting that visual feedback.
Yeah. And just figuring out, hang on, when she said leg, which leg? I would need to watch 3 other people to make sure it is that leg.
Yeah. Give me
now I'm not sure.
Yeah. Now I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. So I'm that student that needs like lots of technique cues as well. So as an instructor, I try to give lots of analogies for cues. And that's because as a student,
you need them.
I have needed that. Yeah. Or I need tactile. Like I need someone to go, no, your leg makes a circle like this and like physically move
grab
my leg. And then once I've got the direction, I'm like, and then the cues will all start making sense.
So for those of you who are not instructors, hopefully you have an appreciation for your instructors. If you look around and they've got a class of 8, 9, 10 or more in it, it's like there's probably 10 different learning styles in there. Well, it's only technically 4 learning styles, right? But variations.
But then you've got like combinations of them and you've got personalities thrown in and body limitations and
strength and wherever you're at. And yeah, so look, your instructors and don't necessarily match their student sometimes. As an instructor, you lead by, as an instructor, you lead by example. I remember when we brought, I think we asked the team to do this, but I can't remember. It was a while ago now, but the VARC learning style, I remember Renee did it and she's like, the way I teach is different to the way I student. So I teach to cater to X, but when I student, I'm a Y. So she's like, that's really interesting. So it can change. Should I do a competition? I feel like we've done a podcast episode on this like a long time
one
ago.
of the very, very early ones.
But this is a very common question from especially like intermediate advanced polars with all the amateur competitions or below amateur competitions you can do now. There's so many more options for competitions.
Yeah.
And look, it depends. What do you want? Like, are you just curious? Do you just want to perform and there's not performance opportunities? I know Dan Rosen went on a bit of what's the word I'm looking for? He talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. About using competitions as a performance rather than competing to win.
Yes.
Like, where do you sit within that?
Yeah. So everybody's got their own opinion on that. But yeah, like what is it that you want to get out of your own whole journey?
Do you just want to like push yourself or like put yourself out of your comfort zone and try something new?
Do you need something to spark your pole journey?
Yeah.
And I love performing. I love being on stage.
Yep, me too.
The adrenaline that comes with it, seeing the end result. But damn, training for them sometimes sucks.
Oh, and there's always that point where you're like, there's probably multiple points where you're like,
why did I do this?
Why did I do this to myself again?
Yeah. And then the post-comp come down.
Yeah, I didn't experience that too much this last round.
Is that because you won?
Maybe. No, I don't know. It still feels really surreal.
Okay, so maybe you're still
maybe I haven't had my post-comp.
Yeah, maybe maybe you're still in your high.
Yeah, I don't know because that's real.
Yes,
that's a real thing. But I didn't really so far. Maybe it's because I was sick, so maybe it coincided. Maybe that was my post-comp come down.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize because I was sick on comp day.
Yeah, maybe.
So I was already starting
that down. You weren't quite up on your high. What are your goals? Just remember, competing is not for everybody. And if you're an instructor and your student does ask you this, I think it's asking them some more questions, like, coaching questions like, what are your goals? What's the grow model? What's the goals? What's the reality? What outcome do you want? What's the next step you can take?
Yeah.
Asking questions like that to help them determine whether or not competing's for them.
And I think just being sensible about like stepping now that there are more opportunities, stepping into that world, whether it's within your own studio.
Yes.
Putting your hand up if your studio allows it to perform at a show night solo, like test the waters rather than signing up for a massive stage comp that's only 2 months away.
Yes.
And then completely crashing because your preparation into it, like you've just gone a bit too hard too quick.
Yes.
So maybe try and start a little bit. Yeah.
And if you do compete, consider your entire training load.
And your
lifestyle. Sometimes not I would not be in a position to compete now. Whereas before buying the studio, I had all the extra time in the world. And I know when people have children, it obviously changes for them as well.
And the other thing is competing is not a cheap exercise.
Oh, no.
And I don't think everyone realizes as well the finance part of it. So you've got at the very minimum, you've got entry fee to the competition, which is not given back to you if you don't make it in. So you've got that. Sometimes there's an additional cost.
Like a competitor fee.
Once
or
you get in.
Or there's no entry fee, but there's a competitor fee.
So you need to read the fine print because that does change. You've got a costume to make, which will still cost money, or to buy, or to source or borrow or whatever. You've got hair and makeup.
Music cutting if you don't have the skills to cut your own music.
Yeah, music cutting. Possibly a coach if
private
you
lessons.
Need to do private lessons or get somebody to help you choreograph, or even at the very end, just watch and critique and give you feedback to make improvements. Some comps you buy your photos or your video post-comp.
Yes.
They don't just get given to you.
Yeah.
Or
you might get like one or two, but you won't get the whole entire spread.
Yep. Nails, tanning, anything like comp day preparation to like
sticky
transport or a hotel or.
Yes. Or like what the things, double-sided tape.
Yeah. Nipple covers.
Yeah, whatever you need.
A new pair of heels, knee pads, like new the right underwear to wear underneath your set, because it's always like that last run through, and you're like, oh, none of my underwear suits,
and you either no underwear or
like there's a whole lot of stuff.
And that the higher you go,
and that's just the money, not even like the time investment or the mental energy.
And also it will, while you'll get stronger throughout this, it will take away from your other pole training as well in some capacity.
Oh, studio hire. Because open practice,
not
time
everybody
slots can work too. Like sometimes it doesn't work for you. So you, especially if you're more of a solo private trainer, you don't want anyone around you while you're writing your routine. You might need to actually hire a studio.
Yep.
I know we did that in the very early days of our doubles training.
Yeah, you guys had to, because
we didn't have comp poles at the studio when we first started. We didn't have 38s. And also time wise, we couldn't get into the studio when there was a time we could just run our own stuff.
The other thing too is the way our studio is set up, our competition poles are across 2 rooms. So, you can't, like if open practice is only in 1 room, you can't necessarily practice a comp routine.
Yep.
So
not on the comp poles.
No.
You get creative.
You get creative, and you can do it in different other ways. But
which is actually good for you too.
Because if you train.
Tangent, but, but if like competition does that, like, are you prepared to learn all of these hard lessons? Because I will say a lot of the big lessons I've learned around getting injured and trying to finish a routine while injured, balancing pole with life or not balancing, having it swing completely pole way and, sacrificing other things. Like they're all hard lessons I've learned through competing.
Yes.
But if you're not going into it with the mindset that there's going to be some hard lessons, it's not all going to be rosy.
Yeah.
Then that can be, maybe it's not for you too.
Maybe. Just looking at where we're at and the time, we might have to make this a 2-parter.
Oh.
I just had another really good one. It's like, I'm just going to write this down for next time. Should I train with another instructor?
Oh,
we're not answering it. That's the hook. That's the hook. Anyway, thanks for joining me, Kat. Don't worry, she'll be back, guys. We've still got 8 more questions to go. I told you this was a chat episode. I didn't lie at that point. Thank you for joining us today to uncover part 1 of questions we get asked as an instructor. If you love this episode, please take a screenshot, tag both myself and Kat. Her handle is @_polecat_. You guys know where I'm at uncovered.pd. And if you really love this episode, leave us a 5-star review. I would love to hear from you. It helps the podcast grow, and it helps us get into more pole dancers' ears. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you soon.